Hello and welcome to my channel. Um, Today's topic that we're going to be talking about is so you want to be an artist, okay? And what's involved in being an artist. So the first thing that I would ask myself is why? Why do you want to be an artist? Maybe perhaps you've already done a lot of drawing, you've done a lot of painting, maybe you're younger and you want to pursue this as a career, maybe you're just unsure. So the first thing I would do is maybe just take down a sketch pad or a paper pad or something and write down the whys. Why do you want to be an artist? If you pursue this path, where do you want it to end up? Now, if you're new to the field, you're going to be probably best off if you do a little research. So when I say artist, that's a pretty broad spectrum of careers there. You could be an illustrator, concept artist, painter, photographer. You could be an architect. You could do landscape architecture, media artists. I mean, the list just goes on and on. There's probably, I've seen lists of between 60 and 100 and upward of careers that involve art. So I would just take a moment, wherever you're at right now, and I want you to look around the room and see what you can find that involves art. And I think once you do that, you're going to find out that there's very little that isn't touched by art. You look at the chairs, you look at the cameras, the phones that you use, the furniture. Virtually everything has had to go through an artist. It had to be touched by a designer in the first place, probably passed on to an engineer working with them. There's people in transportation design who do cars, aircraft, just anything you can think of. So it has to be designed at one point, okay? So art literally bleeds into every facet of our society. So I would spend a little bit of time, after you've looked around the room and said, what's actually involved in making all these type of things, is then to decide what type of artist you want to be. Now, for me personally, I chose to be an illustrator, and I initially wanted to go into industrial design, transportation design, but at the time, I think that was late 80s. I think Art Center was about 10 grand a quarter, and that was just for tuition. Plus, you had to find a place to live in LA, so forth, and at the point, it was just an undoable thing for me at the time. So I went to Utah State, which at the time was, I think, a top 5 art school in the United States, as both of the instructors, at least that I worked with, were graduates of Art Center. So once you've made a decision on what you want to do, and if you're drawing a blank on what you want to be as an artist, fortunately you have the internet and literally unlimited resources to do research on what you want to do. And so for me, again, it was as simple back in the day before the internet of going into a bookstore, seeing illustrations on book covers. I love Frank Frazetta. I love just a whole host of other artists in the comic industry and so forth. And that's what I wanted to do. But like so many people, I really didn't know what to expect. Again, because there was no internet, it was just very difficult, especially in a small town, not only to know what was out there, but to have access to actually professional artwork that you could actually look at. And so that was a little bit problematic, but fortunately you guys don't have to deal with that these days. So the next question I would pose, because I hear this so often, is, do I need to go to school? And the simple answer to that is no, but in my opinion, you would want to go to school, I would say 100% of the time. Now, I know when I was in school, we've had several artists that came up out of high school that were already pretty much had their quiver was full of a lot of professional skills. They just needed to sharpen some of those, learn how to paint. Some already did it really well. So again, I don't want to get into too much detail. We can always save that for another episode, but the reason that I suggest that anyone goes to school is because of the diversity of the assignments that you'll get. We would have professionals come in who would actually give us assignments that they already had done. And then you have harsh deadlines for compositions, and then of course the finished piece and so forth. And these are just things that I would say 99.9% of people are not going to be able to hold themselves to as far as the discipline in learning how to do art. And so I would recommend finding a good school if that's what you want to do, and one that specializes in the field that you've chosen. Again, in my case, it was illustration. So once you've decided, I guess the next question is what comes next? Once you get to school, what's actually going to be involved? How many hours are you going to spend? And I would say it's just going to be considerable hours. I remember my instructor at school saying that he actually, he went to Art Center, and his brother attended school there in LA at the same time that he was going, and they're actually roommates. And he said that even though his brother was in medical school, his brother would finish his homework and retire to go to bed, and he was still up doing artwork. And I feel that's probably pretty accurate. So that being said, one of the things that I would suggest is once you've chosen, again, the emphasis that you want to go into, for me it was illustration. What then? So my philosophy on that is when you've actually selected what you want to do and you know what you want to do, is to explore that as much as possible. Learn as much as you can. And so the analogy that I would give in my particular field is, imagine a piano keyboard. You got, I believe, 88 keys. You want to learn the entire keyboard. Okay, you want to learn everything, all octaves, everything, because if you don't, you're going to be limited to what you can do. Can you imagine only playing maybe 8 notes on a keyboard? It just wouldn't be everything that instrument could provide. But what you can do is once you've learned the breadth of those skills, you'll find ones that you like, ones that you gravitate towards, and then as you move towards a style in your career, you'll actually pick where on that keyboard, again, to draw an analogy, of where you want to be. Now that analogy applies, I believe, to any emphasis, whether you want to be a sculptor, photographer, all those type of things. Learn everything that you can, because it just gives you options. I'll kind of step outside the scope of this video to kind of give you my philosophy on art, and I'll address this in another episode. But I look at art. Art is a communication style, but it's a visual communication style. And you as an artist, regardless of what emphasis you're in, you have a job to communicate your message to whoever's watching that, okay? You need to communicate that as effectively as possible. So when you're in an art field, of course, you're going to learn the equivalent of grammar, all those type of things, which would be composition, color theory, all these type of things, so you can make an effective presentation to convey your message. I am not a big fan of these people who just throw stuff up on a canvas or whatever, and they say, you tell me what you got out of it. That's not art, in my opinion, because again, it's a language, and to me, that's tantamount to somebody saying they know how to play the piano and come and banging on the keyboards. And I would just say to them, reproduce that exact same thing. They can't. They can just bang on some other keys. So that's a little bit on my philosophy on the art side of it. So you do want to learn as much as possible. I would suggest too that, again, if you're in high school, junior high, wherever you're at, experiment as much as possible. Draw every day. Get your sketchbooks, different types of paper, different types of media, pens, markers, paint. And one of the things that I found that was pretty effective is, instead of hunting for a picture to draw, again, I like to make up stuff out of my head a lot, but when you're drawing from photographs, or even from your head, you still have to have a source material to draw from. And when I was younger, I used to think, well, these people that are using photographs are cheating on, and all those type of things. And what I didn't realize, as a young man, that all those people, even comic book artists that are making stuff up out of their head, they originally had to have some source material to pull from. So imagine me saying, I want you to draw a widget. And you're like, well, what is that? Well, if you've never seen one, you can never draw one. If someone's never seen a giraffe, it's going to be impossible for them to draw one if they've never seen one in real life or a picture. So as an artist, you're always going to be observing, filling your minds with as much detail of observation of things that you can. Now that's just kind of touching on what's involved. And from there, I know in my school, I think most art schools are 4 years. We went 5 years. I wanted to give you one class that we took so you can kind of get a taste for what some of these classes are like. Is we had, I believe, fashion illustration, we had techniques, we had concepts for illustration, what else do we have? Advanced illustration, intermediate illustration, children's storybook illustration, and on and on. So you'd kind of get, this is the keyboard I'm talking about, we'd kind of learn all these things and be able to borrow from each of those systems or those areas, and to improve our work, whatever we were doing. And the nice thing about that is that when you learn these things and you learn them well, it gives you competency and it gives you the confidence to execute those things. And you can try that out sometime to see how confident you are, is to invite a few friends around or family and say, hey, I want you to watch me do this drawing. And that can be a little unnerving for most people, even for a lot of professionals. It can be unnerving. So that's part of what's involved. The next thing I would say is, actually, let me get back to the class I was going to tell you about, of one of these classes that we had to go through. So at the time we were at a quarter system, and the typical load was 15 credits. And most of our art classes are 3 credits, and I think some of them are just 1 credit. So for one 3-credit class, that means I've probably got 3 or 4 more that I'm going to be taking that quarter. For one 3-credit class, we would meet twice a week, 3 hours each time, and we would draw from a live model. Okay? Then outside of class, we had to go buy 2 sketchbooks, 100 pages each, and number them each. That's so they're numbered. You can't tear them out if you don't like them. So 200 sketches to do in 1 quarter, in addition to all the other stuff you have. That means you're going to be doing 3 drawings a day. And if you miss a day, you go on a date or you play with your friends, you've got to make that stuff up. And so, but the beauty of that is we were able to take that class as many times as we want, and we could get credit for it each time, because obviously you're drawing new things every time you go into the sketchbook. And that one class, universally, throughout the whole, at least where I was at, Utah State, and our whole department, that class was singled out probably by every student as the class that took them to another level. And there was nothing, I don't think there was anything really special taught in this class, because you're really just going in there and drawing. But the bottom line is, again, just like a piano or a musical instrument, those who practice the most tend to be the best. Okay? I'm an individual that believes that you don't have to be blessed with some super art talent to be an artist. I truly believe that probably 90% of the population can learn to be competent at that art and to produce some pretty good stuff. But it's going to take some dedication. And so that's kind of in a nutshell what you're up against. And the beauty is, even though it's tough, the art field is very, very rewarding. The people you see, the images that you get to see from professionals that are coming in. And then I know when I was in school, we went back to New York City. We went to a lot of the publishers to see their stuff. And really for me, other than the few pieces that I initially saw in school and then some of the professionals, it was the first time for me to see on a much larger scale a lot of professional work that had been published, and it was actually jaw dropping. It was very educational to see that, and then to return. I think we went in the summer, and then to return and apply those things, and I think that's actually a big part of it, just to immerse yourself in art, whether it's people that you follow and you admire, and you want to learn something from them. This is just the time to literally just take a jump into the art swimming pool and get yourself wet and stay there for quite some time. So that's what's involved. I've just again kind of just brushed over a lot of those things. If you have any questions, I would appreciate it if you just put them in the comments below. I'll get to those and answer as many as I can. And if there's something that you want me to touch on as far as to go into more detail, please mention that in the comments. And if you would, just put a like if you like the video. And I will see you next time. Thanks for joining me.